and we are honored and have the pleasure to be here with Brother Mundi, somebody who's inspired me a lot, and I've got a lot of insight, and he's here with us, and it's our honor to have you here, brother. Thank you. I just met you yesterday, and it's a pleasure to have you here with us on What's Really Good.
That's a coincidence, because I met you yesterday also.
Yeah.
Wow. Alexa, we met yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Briefly.
All these coincidences.
Well, I tried to meet you. You avoided me.
No.
But you were nice to me. Thank you.
Oh, man. Come on now.
So, you want to tell them a little bit about the origin of the band, Dr.Buzzard's band? Because you were telling me a little bit. I thought it was fascinating, and I think I got a lot of insight from it. I'm sure anybody else, you know.
Well, is there anything specific you want to know?
Well, you had mentioned that it wasn't called Dr.Buzzards in the beginning.
Well, no, it was called just Savannah Band. Mm-hmm. And then later on, it developed into Dr. Buzzard's original Savannah Band. And then later on, it developed into Dr.Buzzard's original Savannah Band. And then later on, it developed into Dr.Buzzard's Savannah Band. So those are the, what's the word, derivations?
Yeah.
There's different things like that. Mm-hmm. But there's a folklore involved with the name throughout the years that it was started in Georgia with this medicine guy named Dr.Buzzards and all this thing going on. But that was just back in the day. We did a lot of publicity and stuff like that.
Nice.
But I bet you never heard of the band before. You probably hooked her up, right?
Yes, absolutely. I was telling you earlier, I don't lie about my ignorance.
It's not ignorance. It's just
millennial problems.
Nah, it's just you're born at a certain time in history, and there's a lot of things that go before you, and you can't know everything that goes before you.
That's true.
First, you have to learn presidents, right?
Yeah.
You have to learn arithmetic. Then you have to learn all the anthropological figures, and then the scientists, and then after about 50 situations, then eventually go into the music and the artists and stuff like that. Oh, then you got to learn the Da Vinci, all the Renaissance people.
Right.
So before you get to Savannah Band, there's a whole ton of situations you have to learn first. And then eventually Savannah Band. Oh, by the way, I do have another name, Coati Mundi, but back in the Savannah Band days, for some people that might be confused, I was known as Sugar Coated Andy,
Okay.
which is the name I was born with, Andy Hernandez. Then I had to change it for personal reasons after Savannah Band.
Yes.
But now I can reveal it.
Okay.
But I go by the name of Coati Mundi now for many years now. Just getting confused.
Well, it sounds like you have a pretty, I guess, eclectic taste in art and etc. Because you sat here and talked about like the Renaissance period, and you talked about, I guess, what I'm trying to say is, lately I've been relying on my friends like Wani to give me homework. He literally gives me homework. Like, look up this, look up that, get yourself familiarized with this stuff. Like, this is really cool. And so, maybe like...
So he's sort of like a mentor to you.
Yeah, he's
Wow.
awesome. He puts me on to like all the good music.
Lonnie, is there good money in mentoring?
You know, I don't know. It's invaluable what I get out of it.
Okay.
You know,
Okay,
so, yeah, I get something that's beyond money.
because I'm looking for something to do.
But yeah, I'm sure it's
And
possible.
if there's good money in mentoring, I'll do the mentoring too.
You'll do it too? Oh, okay. Well, then I guess I'll pay you for your recommendations. I'll be your first client.
Yeah, I think it pays off for all. You know.
But on a serious note, it's what people, not a lot of young people, but there's a significant amount of people, and I say young only because of the situation presently, but even when I was young, there was still a lot of, at that time, people don't realize that there's a history before all this. So it has nothing to do with today they use the word millennials, but when I was young, it was, who knows what the name they used. But certain people were only just concerned with what was going on in terms of themselves and what they were doing. But they didn't know that there was a history that developed into that. And I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying I think it can enrich you, enrich your life if you know a little bit of how what you're doing now came into being. Not only in terms of music and art and all that, but in terms of history, in terms of politics, society in general, to know how things develop and it got to it, even if it's the history of your parents, your relatives, things of that situation. Because I tell them what's the rock and roll and the rhythm and blues that's going on had roots years ago. And some people think rock and roll started, let's say, with Bill Haley. You ever heard of him? Rock Around the Clock, 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Was shared with people that actually has gone even before that. It kind of was this, then it became this, then they added this and became that. But before that, there was Louis Jordan. Saturday Night Fish Fry, which started off Rock Around the Clock, because politically speaking, they wanted a white or Caucasian version of Louis Jordan. That rock and roll thing, so thus came out Bill Haley. And I mean, he did a good joke, but I mean, good joke, a good job. Oh God, Freudian slip. You know who Freudian was?
Yeah.
Okay. But Louis Jordan was the man before that.
Caledonia.
And Caledonia and GI Blues and just a lot of great stuff. Open the Door, Richard. And so there was a history before that. And guys like Chuck Berry and Little Richard would always say that was my idol.
Yeah.
So a lot of us would say, oh, Little Richard, Chuck Berry, all that stuff, and Jimi Hendrix, and those guys had idols too. So it goes on and goes on. But what they did now, which influenced the whole world, they were influenced by other people, and they then developed that and put their own thing to it. So I just think it helps, it enriches your life to know about what went on. And it also gives respect to those that come before us.
Yeah.
Absolutely. One of the things
Did that sound depressing?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. That was amazing.
It's empowering.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually forgot that I was supposed to like ask questions during that. It's like, oh wow, this is interesting.
Yeah, that's very empowering, you know, because that's what the source is for everything, whether we can see it or not. So if we could see it, we could really be sourced from it and be aware of the power, you know, that it has, the healing power.
Yeah, I was the way I look at it is this. Like when people listen to Dr. Buzzard's original Savannah band, they hear all these type of influences, these type of sounds and everything like that. And some people think we like sat around the table and says, okay, what are we doing? Let me see. Okay, we'll put a little bit of this in here, grab a little bit of this, put that in here, put this in here, put this in here, put this in here. Until night, because they trying to figure out how did we come up with this sound and everything. They trying to, their mind can say, well, how did this happen? And we were all young. We were in our 20s, and we didn't realize what we were putting together. We just did what we did. And so we got together and it just happened organically. And it was part of our heritage, part of our experience. And I always look at it like if you go into a house or a situation, you go through it. As you go through it, you pick up a little bit of dust particles here, then little strings here, a little cat here, a little dog here, there. You pick up all these things. That to me is always the influence of life. You pick these things up, and then at one point you do this and all that, and then you got gumbo and you got potpourri, and you don't even know it. And that's the way we were. We all individually had things that we liked as kids before we even knew we were going to get into music or anything like that. And that just kind of got into us. And then when you start expressing yourself, whether it's musically or art or your job or whatever, these influences as a youth start coming out. But you don't say, hey, I'm going to do this like Tin Pan Alley. So to us it came naturally, but even in the course of developing, we're developing more as some things are dictated by the budget you have. So when we started, we were just a rhythm section of 6 cats. And then once we got a record deal, we freaked the record company out because we said we want to do like the 40s. We have big band, this sound and this and that, but it was based on the rhythm section. So we want strings and horns. We want this, we want that. And it was the opportunity to have these things to manifest what we were feeling in our minds. We want to do this, film, cinema, make it cinematic, this and that, just living the dream. But now we had the adults involved, and the adults had deep pockets, and we said, oh God. Oh yeah, we're going to the candy store with mommy and daddy's money. And now we're going to get what we really want. And so it developed naturally that way. And a lot of things dictated that.
Mm-hmm. And can you talk about how you got into the band originally?
Well, that was also serendipitous. Actually, I shouldn't even use that word because that word seems to apply something good, like your show and everything. But when I was a kid, I was my dad. I told my dad I wanted to play. Well, the way I got started was I'm a vibe player, vibraphone, but that's my first instrument. That was my original instrument. And as a kid, all of us, before we were into music, we would all hang out, right? We're playing sports, we're riding bicycles, we're doing all that kind of stuff. And then we saw bands performing and a cappella groups doing that. And they got a lot of attention. And I was looking and I says, man, even the guys were loving them. Because sometimes you do things to pick up babes and stuff like that. But I says the band, the musicians, even the guys applauded. They were admiring them. And me being 5'3", I wasn't athletic. Well, I turned out to be athletic. I didn't know it. But at the time, I thought it was like I was not heavy into sports or anything like that. And you all, as a kid, you all want attention. You all want to be admired. Not everybody, but I know I was. And most of the people said family parties, dance for the uncle, the aunt, and all that stuff. You want to show off and all that. So then we said, damn, these musicians, they get a lot of attention from older people, younger people, men, women. Even when they play music, dogs and cats come around. Well, where I grew up, it was also roaches and rats.
Oh, likewise.
Yeah, right. So that came out, and I says, oh man. So one guy says, hey, let's put a band together. And I'm trying to remember, that's why I hesitate, because when you're 85 years old, the memory goes. So I'm rewinding.
Take your time.
Okay.
Do you think maybe it had to do with like escapism?
No. It was more trying to jump into reality. Okay. The reality of having babes, attention, applause, approval, being an idol, that kind of reality that was over there, and we wanted to get to that place. Okay. So one guy says, let's start a band. The problem was that nobody sang, nobody played instruments, nothing like that. It wasn't about the substantial part of being an artist or any of that kind of stuff. It was about the superficial thing. Attention, showing off, that kind of thing. So now we're all in our teens, young teenagers and stuff. Problem is, okay, now what? All right, let's start a band. Okay. You need instruments. We don't have any instruments. How do we get instruments? Boom, Christmas. That's the time when you get things, right? When you ask for something and people that brought you into this bad boy, they're supposed to get it for you. That's the way the tradition is, right? So one of the guys says, okay, you're gonna play guitar. He's pointing out to the different cats. You're gonna play drums. You're gonna get this or this instrument. Then he looked at to me and he says, you're gonna get vibraphones. Vibraphones, even to this, do you know what that instrument is?
No.
See, even to this day, a lot of people don't know what that instrument is.
Well, I play the guitar, and a lot of people don't know what the heck that is, so.
The guitar as opposed to the guitar. We're talking about that today. So anyway, but back then, we had certain artists and musicians that played the vibraphones. Lionel Hampton, Cal Jader, Tito Puente, and these was people whose music we were familiar with. And there was this cat named Joe Cuba. It was a sextet. There used to be these salsa musicians, and there was salsa groups that had sextets, which vibraphones was an important part of it, like a guitar might be in a rock and roll band or so, or guitar in a rock and roll band. So he pointed to me out of nowhere. But it wasn't like I had a yearning to be a musician or anything like that. I didn't have no talent for it. I didn't have talent for anything. I just basically went to school. But I love showing off. And I love making people laugh, and I like entertaining them. Because one of the first songs I ever sang was just as a 5-year-old, Let's Twist Again. I just did it, just to do it, just to show off. And that's how I got into it. Here's a trick. When Christmas, so I went to my dad, I says, I want to play vibes, which is short for vibraphones. So he says, all right, I'll get you the instrument, but you have to promise me that you'll learn it. Because they tried to get me into music before, and he tried to get me playing conga drums. I would break the conga drums. They tried to get me a piano. I'd go on lesson. I wouldn't practice, nothing like that. I didn't want nothing to do with music. But when they decided to put a band together, and that became more of a different situation. There was a serious intent involved at that time. Girls, show off to the guys. We couldn't play baseball or football or anything like that. So it's also important for guys to admire you. And usually the guys that got that will get everybody admiring them, whether a football player, basketball player, baseball player, all the athletic sports guys. They got so they got the babes, the guys, the parents, everybody loved them. So the other thing was musicians. And that's also come Christmas time, my dad got me my instrument, but the parents did not get anybody else the instrument. They got them things like bicycles, things of that nature, so the band never got started. Now here I am stuck with this instrument. If you know, this instrument is like marimbas, it's xylophones. So it's a big instrument. I'm a little guy, so now I'm stuck with this big instrument, and I promised my dad I would learn it. So he signed me up for lessons, and I just took lessons. I took it seriously, out of respect to my dad, may he rest in peace. And that's how I got into it.
Wow.
That's awesome. And you know what? After you said salsa music, it dawned on me what instrument you're talking about now.
Right. That was the journey for me, how it got started with that instrument. But it didn't come out of some kind of need for me to express my art, my creativity, and that I had a special talent, that I came out of the womb. Like you hear stories of guys, I came out, I was playing pots band, I was doing this. I didn't care about any of that stuff.
You were the babes in the...
I was. It was not that for me. It was totally superficial. Then, as I got into it, I started to enjoy it, and I realized, wow, this ain't no joke. You have to practice. There's got to be a certain amount of substance to it. Then that developed, and that came along. Fast forward, eventually, that journey got me into Savannah Band when somebody told me they were looking for a piano player. Now, here's the thing. I was a vibe player. If you know vibes, it has the same structure as piano. So I then was playing vibes, but at that time it was a rare instrument like it is now, a rare instrument. So I couldn't get much gigs, so to speak. Not that I was getting gigs anyway, but it's like for vibes. It's not like guitar, popular instrument, or drums, or bass, or something like that. It's not too many bands had that instrument. But now I'm caught. That's why I say is when you get into the journey of trying to be an artist or whatever it is, people look at it as being a good thing, and it is a good thing. But once you get caught into where you want to make it a living and be a professional, there's a dark side to it, and it's just like everything. It's hard to do it with acting, whatever it is. Man, this is tough. It beats you up, and then you got to develop thick skin and deal with it. Go that. So, if you have no talent and you don't have no opportunity, in a way, I look at it as like, and let's say you end up becoming a lawyer or an accountant or something where you're getting a paycheck every Friday, I said, that's a good thing. But if you get a little bit of a door opened, even if you don't have much talent or anything, but you have a certain amount of success, oh God, you get drawn into it.
Right.
And then you start getting beat up. And then something good happens. You stick with it. Because the pleasure of the arts lasts a long time. You ever do something and you're on that high? That high can keep you going for a long time. Then the bad things are coming at you. 6 weeks of bad time, and then 1 minute of something good. And that 1 minute sustains you for like a year. Because it stays in your, oh God, that felt good, that gig. Plus I made a couple dollars. Everybody was having a great time, and all that stuff. And that keeps you going through those bad times.
So for you, what actually kept you going after you were in these, like you said, the tougher times within it, and it's not no longer the base?
Because I was an idiot. When I couldn't get gigs playing vibes anymore because there wasn't all that, a flag should have gone up and says, bro, forget about this, man. It was just hard times. And I says, but me, I was being stubborn, and I says, okay, what can I do? I says, well, let me play piano. I go to my parents, I says, can I get a piano? And God bless them, may they both rest in peace. They says, okay, because they would support me in whatever my endeavors were. They got me a piano, so I just sat down. I said, let me learn this, because piano was part, especially with Latin bands and with soul bands, keyboards was part of it. So I started banging out just to get, I had no talent for it, but I could learn enough. I had enough intelligence to figure out, okay, this is a C major chord, a B flat minor, fingers fit in, and then do some basics. And so at that time I was young, and a lot of the bands were really comprised of young people and stuff like that. And back in those days, if you got a gig, sometimes some guys couldn't make it, and the money wasn't that great, but I was willing to do whatever for little money or no money. I was willing to do things on spec and everything just to jam. So they'll put up with my certain inabilities that I had, and then I would just, by doing, I would learn things. I would learn the rhythm section. So then I got to a point after a while where I could represent myself pretty good on piano. So I was doing gigs. And that's how I got into Savannah Band. I heard they were looking for a piano player. And I always tell people I never let the lack of talent stop me from doing anything, at least legally. I'm not going to perform surgery and kill somebody because I don't know it. But in terms of music, I was like, who can I hurt? So I went and auditioned. So that's how I got into Savannah Band. Now I audition against serious cats that could do all this stuff and classically trained, they could read music, all this and all that. But Savannah Band was not about that. Savannah Band was also about character and what you brought into it personally. It was about not only the music, but the personalities. Because that was part of it, being animated and everything. And that's what I brought to the table. So anytime they would ask, can you try this and try that? I didn't care if it was against music theory, if it's out of the chord, if there was a rub, a dissonance, and all that. I just did it. It was fun.
Nice.
Yeah, I could do that. Do this crazy thing. They said, try this. Try this. I mean, they'll tell you, put your feet up and then go like this, and then try like that, and then roll your lip. I would try it. I was game for everything. And they would ask me questions about stupid stuff, and I would answer for whatever reason. And they liked that about me, so that's how I got in the band. And though so I beat out a lot of cats that could play. But some of these guys, they would tell them, all right, play this chord. And they would tell me, all right, it's a A flat minor chord with a ninth on it. And the guy said, no, that's not a ninth, that's like a minor ninth. Or no, that's a sharp 10. And a sharp 11th or something like that. And the cats in the band, none of us were really educated theory-wise in music. So there's a saying that goes, a rose is still a rose by any other name is still a rose. That kind of saying. So for us, if this is the chord we want and we call this chord a Z ninth with a triple zytrobe, even if they don't teach you that in music school, that's what we're calling it, all right? But play that chord, and if you're gonna argue with, no, that's not that's just a G9 chord or something like that. We feel like show us a little respect, man. And that's what we say is. That's what we is. Don't do much interviews or anything like that, even when I'm asked, because part of me is embarrassed about it, but who am I? Who knows me? Because I was like, it's not like I had the big name or anything like that, so who cares? So you're sort of embarrassed, like, sometimes you see people like, and they get full of themselves, and I said, God, I don't know. So that's me stepping outside of me, but then there's the other side of me, so who cares? Nobody likes it, they don't like me, and they think I'm full of this, so what? What the hell? You get to a certain age and you get grumpy. and when you get to a certain age and you're grumpy, also you don't care. And like Nina Simone, she was always grumpy. So and then when she got to a certain older age, she was even grumpier. Never mind that coming from that whole black experience in this country and everything like that also shaped a certain attitude that she had. She didn't care. She did what she wanted or whatever she could, or if somebody, she didn't care. She truly didn't care what we thought about her and all that. I'm sure she did in certain places and all that, but that's me now. That's why I do this, but sometimes it's like, I tell people, anything you're gonna ask me has probably been said before. You can probably, right now, because of this, what they call it,
YouTube?
Wikipedia.
Google. You can find out anything. So I don't know what I can add new to the what can I bring to the table?
Can you talk a little bit about the lyrics that we're talking about, Tommy Mottola?
Italiano.
Well, really, Tommy Mottola, a lot of people know, in terms of our band, the most known song is Cherchez la Femme. Which was our biggest hit. back in that day in '76, off our debut album, as I say, the eponymous album. And so, in that song, every time I run into fans or young people that know the song, and it's getting worse. Because there was a time where young people come up to me and say, my parents turned me on to this Cherchez la Femme in Savannah band. Now they're coming up to me and saying, my grandparents turned me on to that. That's when I slap them. I've been in jail quite a few times. I said, well, okay, I can deal with the parents, but don't go with the grandparents. I figure in about a year, they're going to hit me with the great-grandparents. Now I'm really going to be depressed. Anyway, we got Tommy Mottola lives on the road. That's what that was essentially. Tommy. Now, some people that are old enough or do their research, they see, hold it, is this the Tommy Mottola that was married to Mariah Carey? That is now married to this person, the guy that ran this and all that, the big shot, the multi-millionaire? Yeah, that's the guy. So they just flip with the fact that his name is in that song. And they would want to know about the song and about him and everything like that. And so at the time, sometimes people look at you and they don't realize that at one time you were 20 years old and 21 years old and you were also young and you did bratty things. So when he became our manager, back in those days with your friends, you just goof on them and make them part of everything. So for the song, I forgot the original lyric, but we said, hey, let's get rid of that lyric and let's put Tommy Mottola in there instead of Joe Rodriguez or something like that. So we go, Tommy Mottola lives on the run. We just did it as a goof. He wasn't actually living on the run. He was still living large at that time. Not as large as he is now, but little did we know we would immortalize him forever, all these years. And so that's how he got on. He got in there. We just did it as a goof. And then when we had a falling out with him, later on our third album, we put a song together called Italiano, which is, he was Italian and we were emotional over it. And so it was not against all Italians. It was just against him. And back in the day, it wasn't as politically correct as it is now.
You didn't have to be as careful.
Right. I mean, even we would call each other by, if you were Spanish, you were going to get called this name, sometimes in jest, sometimes seriously. When there was a fight breakdown, even among two Spanish people, whatever. Oh, you speak, motherfucker. We call each other like that because you try whatever it takes to hurt him. If you had to call the guy, whatever, piece of furniture or something like whatever that was it. It was no PC thing. And then if you're mad at somebody, you're mad at them, depending how angry you were. You were mad at the parents, even if you never met them. You're mad at their school teachers. Everybody, anything, the whole history of the person, including their ethnicity. If the guy liked jazz, even if you like jazz, you say, you listen to that stupid jazz music, that don't mean anything. Meanwhile, you got a whole collection of Miles Davis and the Bird and Coltrane and all that stuff. It doesn't matter. All is fair in love and war, and whatever it took. Now you can't do that. It's a little rough nowadays. So, and growing up, but when you were kids, it wasn't all about that stuff. It wasn't about the internet and social media. So that's why Italiano came in and said, all right, we're going to get this Italian man. We're going to write about Italiano. We're going to get back into the public eye. We're going to be big without him. Of course, it never happened, but he became big. He won. That sucker won. And so that's how that came about. But anyway, I was going to say that when I joined Savannah Band, I was as a piano player. And then, but we were still young. But then we started getting into the major leagues. And that's where it gets rough. Because once you start getting into what I call the major leagues and to being a professional and everything, the pressure is unbelievable. So now we got a record deal, and so this is a whole brand new world. So that's when I really learned about the business of Savannah Band, knowing that, and that's when I took a negative and turned it into a positive. Because they wanted, I was a piano player, but I wasn't a trained classical piano player. I wasn't really that good. I was good enough for our music, and I enjoyed playing with the cats, they enjoyed playing with me. But then you start going to a studio recording and all that. They said, well, we can bring really serious cats that can play and all that stuff. We don't really need them. So at the time, I was just a musician. I'm just a vibe player. So it's sort of like in sports, like you got a basketball team, you got a general manager, and they're trying to see how they can make the team better. And sometimes they don't take into account that maybe a cat is a veteran or he brings a good feeling into the locker room and all that. They look at it, how good is his jump shot? Is he tall enough? Can he dunk? Can he do all this stuff? They don't take into account the what they call intangibles. So same thing in music. So we don't need this cat. He's just a musician. Whereas this person, we need it because they're the singer. They got power. Boom, this guy, he may not play that good, but he's a songwriter. He's writing the lyrics. This person's writing the music. That person's important. Can't get rid of that guy because that guy is the boyfriend of this girl who's very powerful. Can't get rid of her because that's his mistress. All these things into play, but if you're just a basic musician and you got no power, we can get a cat that plays better than him. And they could, because there's always somebody better. And if you got a record deal and you're with a major label and serious managers, serious, what I call the adults, they can get that. So they try to get rid of me. And I says, oh man, what am I going to do? So that's when I decided, they never knew I could play vibraphones. I said, look, I got a cool instrument, and back in the day, in the 40s and all that, and Lionel Hampton, all that, it looks great. Because the instrument, the vibraphones, is just a great looking instrument. When people see it, it brings something out of them. So I brought it to rehearsal once, and I started playing it, and they knew of the instrument, but to see it right there in their presence, playing it, they absolutely loved it. So now the leader of the band, who wrote the music, and was the leader of the band that started it, he played guitar. But he always fancied himself like Duke Ellington, Count Basie. All right, well, I'm going to fast forward because I can keep you here forever. And some material I got to say from my book. So, eventually the male vocalist left the band or was forced out or pushed out. Corey Day, who was our background singer, came to the forefront. And from there, with me switching to vibraphones, boom. That's when it really came together. And that was the history. And so Savannah Band, which was my first foray into the major leagues, though I was playing with different bands before that, but this was like the major league. Got nominated for a Grammy, our album went gold, platinum, that whole thing, and we went from, you're from the Bronx, right? Remember White Castle?
Yeah.
So we went from eating at White Castle to this old Hollywood restaurant called Chase's. It's no longer around, where all the big stars are hanging out. Next thing you know, we're hanging out with Mae West and Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis and all this kind of thing. And so we go from, and all along the ride, we're like kids. I'm in the bathroom taking a piss, and there's Ed McMahon right next door to me, and there's this person is like, oh man, they got penises too, man. You know, you never looked at it. It's, oh God, all right. And then we were nominated for a Grammy, which we were nominated with Wild Cherry, play that funky music, White Boy, Boston, Brothers Johnson, Starland Vocal Band, and us. Starland Vocal Band won. And we were all like, the wind came out all over us because everybody wanted to win. And we didn't get to win. And It was kind of depressing. But part of me, I also enjoyed the moment of it, which is a big part of it.
But losing to Afternoon Delight.
Yeah, it was. But when I think back to it, I still had my world could have drastically changed if we had won that Grammy. Because when they won, they got a TV show and they got all these things happening. It was still coming from Spanish Harlem. We came from Spanish Harlem in the South Bronx, the band, and it was still like, look at us. We're in Hollywood, this person, that person. All these stars, this Michael Jackson Young. And so, it's good to enjoy that moment. I don't think we enjoyed it as much as we could have. I sometimes think back then, I says, there's a lot of complaining and this and jealousies and fighting and infighting and group fighting, but it was still great times. But there was one funny incident just from the Grammys. We were introduced by the Beach Boys, which was an honor in itself, even as losers or whatever. So anyway, back in those days, in the 70s, they were trying this new thing, satellite hookup, where somebody could be in location and you could see them in the screen right here. And now it's no big deal, but back then it was like, wow. So Stevie Wonder was part of the show, but he was in Africa. So they did a satellite hookup in Africa. Now this was the beginning stages of that. So they had technical problems. So the host of the Grammys that year was Andy Williams. I don't know if you heard of him, and he had this big song, Moon River, and all kinds. It was a big name, Andy Williams. So now, we had problems with the sound. Stevie Wonder started performing. Hey, now we got a live performance, Stevie Wonder in Africa, I forget what country. So he starts, you can't hear anything. They're having trouble with the audio feed. Andy Williams goes, Stevie, can you see us? We can't hear you. Can you see us? The whole audience is cracking up. They go, first before cracking up, they go, oh. He didn't get it. And then somebody like, oh.
That's like when Kanye recently told somebody that they had to stand up, like, I'm not continuing the song until every single person in this room stands up for my song. And he was like singling out this poor kid, and he's like disabled in a wheelchair, and he actually can't get up.
Oh, well, that's like in that world.
Yeah.
So fast forward through the years, I run into Stevie Wonder at Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles, right? So I go
Already a great story.
Right. So I go in there, and then there's Stevie Wonder on one side of the restaurant, and I have run into him through the years on and off, but I hadn't seen him in a while. He's never seen me. So I says, I'm gonna go up to Stevie Wonder and say hello, and I'm gonna just name drop, because I always remember him, good memory. Say, hey Stevie, this is so and so from Savannah band and all that stuff. And he starts cracking up. He says, remember the Grammys of '76? He said, yeah, with Andy, he's telling me this. Like, we were both cracking up. He's got his bodyguards there, I got the people with me, and they seen us both cracking up. He said, yeah, he was telling me, can you see me? The guy didn't realize I was blind. It's kind of tough, man. And we're cracking up, and I says, oh man, that alone, the whole journey, all that, just to be in this restaurant here with Stevie Wonder, me and him acting like kids goofing about something that happened in our 20s back in the day. I says, man, it's just things like that are pearls and gems that makes the journey much more bearable when you go through the dark passages and stuff like that. Just to have a story like that to share with you and your audience. And there's been a lot of things like that, but that was a great, great memory.
That's beautiful.
That's amazing. Did you meet Muhammad Ali as well?
Oh, I got a story about Muhammad Ali.
You said you are writing a book, though.
Yeah, I am writing a book, so I may have to save that story, but I won't say specifically what my experience and adventure with Muhammad Ali was, but all I can say is that he was an idol of mine since I was a kid. And I always admired him. And then I got to meet him. And I got to hang with him for a minute. And it was really interesting, educational, and very, very entertaining. So I'll save that for some other day. But great guy. May he rest in peace. Really amazing character. And I don't know if you remember his, what they call now your wingman or your hype man. Yeah, Boudini Brown.
Yeah.
That guy was, I got a story about him too. That guy was a nefarious character. Amazing cat.
He was an actor too.
Yeah, he was an actor, but I'll tell you a quick story with him. Before I even met Muhammad Ali, when I was first starting in music, at one point I was playing with a band, we were playing jazz and stuff like that. So Boudini Brown was using Muhammad Ali's name for all kinds of businesses. So he opened up a jazz club called Boudini's World. And we were playing that, and we were opening up for this drummer, Art Blakey, great drummer and stuff like that, and Bobby Timmons on piano. And I forgot who was on, it wasn't Ray Brown, I forgot who was on bass, but serious jazz cats. And we were opened up for them, like a kids band opening up. So anyway, we got a gig opening up for Art Blakey. I said, great, and all that. So when I was going to do sound check, we're going to go to the jazz club during the afternoon. The doors are locked. She said, what's going on? The door's locked. So then there's a little Caucasian fella right there. He had locked up all the doors. In comes Boudini Brown. He says, man, what are you doing? Like I said, you haven't paid the rent. You haven't done anything like this. Meanwhile, there's Art Blakey. We're there, we're waiting to get inside to do a sound check. I'll be right back with the rent. He goes back, comes back with a hammer. He goes in, damn, breaking the lock. He broke the lock and he opened it. Damn, now let's go in this. I was like, oh man, beautiful,
Wow.
just beautiful. And we still played that night.
Oh my gosh, even more.
And I got to meet Blakey and Bobby Timmons. Morning, in the morning. And there it is.
Wow.
That's awesome.
It's amazing.
Well, really quick before we go, I've been wanting to ask, your necklace, it's a very interesting necklace.
Yes, actually, I got this at the local store, Wacko, and I'm actually try to be spiritual, but not take it too serious. And when I saw this necklace, I says, yeah, this is kind of my kind of necklace. It's got the cross, and it's got the bees, and it's got a picture of Little Richard.
I love it. That's the best. I got it. Truly. That's awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time. We appreciate you taking time out of your day, Father's Day, to sit down and reminisce with us and chat a little bit.
And to my father, may he rest in peace. Thank you. I had a good time. I know I talked a lot.
We appreciate it.
I could get very loquacious, but sometimes when stories are not that cut and dry and simple,
Right.
sometimes you got to put them, you got to give them context. You got to, there's things to it. It's just not facts. There's other things into it.
You're a great storyteller, and I'm sure people are educated and entertained as well, and the insight from your stories, because I sure am. I just wanted to ask you, I know you the Savannah band, and you played in Coconuts as well?
Well, Kick Creole the Coconuts.
Kick Creole.
Well, it was the bass player who was also the lyricist of Savannah Band. He after Savannah Band, or towards the end of Savannah Band, sort of the writing was at the wall. As I tell people, like most successful rock bands, we eventually started to go bankrupt. So he always also, one thing about when you're a creative person, is it could be very frustrating because most creative people need to grow. And in any situation, really. I keep, because of music and acting and all that kind of stuff, but we all have a need to grow. So in Savannah Band, he was doing one thing, I was doing one thing and all that, and we were like sort of stay in your lane kind of situations. When you start having any kind of success, it's like, all right, you gotta stay in your lane, you gotta do this, do that, don't mess with the formula. But the creative soul wants to say, I can do this, I can do that, even if you can't. You want to try to do this and that. And really, that's what saved me. I had that. I want to do things just to, I had mentioned earlier about power. And I realized that when they were trying to get rid of me, those who were trying to get rid of me, I realized that I needed power to survive in this cutthroat, hard, merciless business. So I says, man, I gotta arm myself in order to survive. Because it wasn't like I was born like a child prodigy. I could play violin. At 5 years old, I can do a concerto or whatever it is and all that. I didn't have a grade anything. It was like I just learned things just for the fun of it. It started off for me fun, and by luck or bad luck, I don't know, whatever, I started getting into it professionally, and it was off. It's like I was being dragged into it. I wasn't quite ready. I didn't have the talent. I didn't really have the skills. But I realized. But once I got into it, it was like drugs or something. Man, I want to stay in this. I kind of love it. But man, I'm not gonna survive. So then I had to learn other things. So I had to teach myself to arrange, to write music, write songs. So I just kept doing things. And so the bass player was very talented lyricist and talented bass player. He wanted to grow. So he wanted to sing. He wanted to play guitar. He wanted to not just write lyrics. He wanted to write music also and all that. So he wanted to start his own band. So by this time, as I had that experience, which I was going to say, I turned a negative into a positive. They were trying to get rid of me. That then inspired me to, okay, I got to learn, write charts, write the chords down. Much better. I knew a little bit. I said I really got to up my game and that. And then I got to do other things, which meant write music, arrange. And then I started like, I can't sing, but practically toned it. I said I'm going to do it anyway. I started rapping before even rapping was popular. Then says if I write my own songs, I can control the range. I can't sing any of the other songs, but if I write my own songs, I said okay, I'll keep it within a 4-note range. Because I'm in control of it, then I can sing it. I said, maybe someday I'll be able to sing, I have a 5-note range. Maybe it's a 6-note, but meanwhile, I'll just write the songs with them. So I started to do that just to survive, because I was already in it. I said, I have to do this, put this in, do this. And I've been able to survive throughout. And then I got into doing films and everything. So with Kid Creole, I told him, look, I'll be your music director. I'll come along with you. Because he couldn't write and all that. So I could bring in the technical things of writing and doing the arranging, and he would have the concept. And eventually I brought in songwriting, because I started writing my own songs, and that became to it. But when you're creative or you get into it, you get sucked into it, however way it is, you want to grow, and that's how a lot of groups break up, because guys want to do different things and the guy in charge just want to keep you here, keep you there, and keep all the power to himself. Right. But my whole thing was, in order for me to survive, I need power. And what gives you power? Songwriting, singing. At the time, we weren't performing, because I felt a good entertainer visually. I could dance. Even though I wasn't a trained dancer, but I'll just move. Like a kid moves and wiggle, and it's entertaining, right? Even if you can't technically dance or whatever. But before I got to that, I started getting power when we started performing, because I was a cat that they liked visually. I would play vibes and I would dance with it. And so a lot of times I tell people, if you're going to be in this business, you need to develop get that toolkit and just add things into just to survive. Even if you're really great at one thing, it's good to have all these other things going. And then you gotta be ready to, I have to put it this way, but to compete with what's out there. Because there's only so much room through that door. Back in the day when they had record stores and video stores, see, I'm not the kind that says you can do whatever you want if you believe in yourself and this and that. I said if a person wants to be in this business, they're gonna be in it whether you like it or not, whether their parents say yay or nay or this and all that. Nothing's gonna stop them. They're gonna go. And I rather be negative and see if they go against me also. So often I used to take young people into the record stores and into the video stores. I says, you see every film here? For every film that's in here, there's been hundreds that couldn't get into the door. And all these films here, 90% of them are failures. Same thing with the records. 90% of these are failures, and every record in here, there's been hundreds trying to get completed and done, and they don't succeed. Yet, every one of them that created that had their hopes and their dreams. Even the ones that sucked, that you look at, man, what is it? What was it? That person, to them, was real. And they put money into it, and hopes and dreams and emotion and everything, and it fails. If you're willing to do that and go up against all that, then go forth. God bless, Excelsior, fare thee well. But I never would say, believe yourself, this and that. So I always tell people, look, don't ask me to go talk to kids and everything, because I'm going to depress them. Because I know what I went through.
So one thing I've noticed, like throughout this entire conversation, is you set a very thin line between, well, you've said things like, and luckily, well, maybe not luckily, or and the good thing was, or maybe it wasn't that good, or...
Right, because it's the yin and yang is at the same time. Because a lot of times I say, I have people I know that are rich and that made a lot of money, have a lot of things, have a lot of security and everything like that. And my thing has always been rough, up and down, with a lot of joy and pain, like the song says. And so when I say it's great, at the same time, it's like everything. 1 hour you have a good time, and the next hour is bad, and then comes back to good. So my journey is I never, sometimes all these things are hitting me at the same time. So a lot of people say, oh, you changed my life with Savannah Band and with this song and this and that, it inspired me. And I look and I think that's great, but then the memory comes in, oh man, that time this happened and it depressed me and I was crying and this and that. At the same time, the next day I'm having joy and all that. And so I can't really separate it. It goes together. And then sometimes I question the journey. I says, would I have been better off if I just stayed and pursued business or something more concrete, something that would definitely have a pension waiting for me when I get old and all this and all that. So I do question that. At the same time, I said, oh man, this has been beautiful, this experience, this person, I would not have met it. Like my friend Laurie, East Side, I would not have met if it wasn't for this journey. And a lot of people that way. And then at times when I was doing really great and making a lot of money, I was able to facilitate a lot of dreams for other people in my family and friends and things like that. And then when I ran out of money, it was rough to do that. And then I come back up, it was up and down like a roller coaster. So you have to be prepared for the yin and yang of the business. Some people never have that trouble. They start here and they go up and up and up and up and up. There are some people that will step on shit, and when they clean off their shoes, there's $100 bill. They just can't go wrong. I'm not one of them.
Anything you have that you're up to?
Yeah, where can we find you?
There's nothing happening. I just go with the flow right now. I'm contemplating a few projects, and I don't know if they'll be manifested. I want to do it. I have a lot of tracks unreleased in the closet that I'm thinking of maybe putting a compilation. So I'm thinking of a little jazz compilation of tracks that have been unreleased, not completed, that I want to complete. Call it Blue Mundi. It'll be like a jazz album of be an album of jazz and Latin things that I've done, and some things are now completed, and I said, well, I'll put that out. But then nowadays it's different. Okay, put it out. You gotta have. Here's the other thing. The great thing about today is that you can put out your own record easily. You put your records together, but everybody's doing it, and you really need to have a promotion and marketing plan, and you need money to do that righteously to compete against. With all this new gear and hardware and computer and all these programs and everything like that, now there's more of the population now. So it's crowded, man. It's crowded. So you need to promote. You need to hire a publicity team. You have to be the record company now. You have to do everything because there's less labels, and sometimes it's good that you control your own things and you own it from a business point of view, but at the same time, it's very competitive. And though a lot of those people that are doing these things are not really bringing forth anything viable or great, still they're in the way. If you know that there's a door there, that you know once you're in there, you're happening. You're as good as gold. But in front of that door, there's packed with all kinds of people trying to get in. I said, most of those people ain't got much to offer. They learned GarageBand from the computer and pressed a few buttons and came up with something that they think is dope. And they're there with their trying to get in through the door. So even though you know that you got the real stuff, it's a lot of people. You gotta like, excuse me. No, I was your friend. I know, but I got the real. Hey, the doorman. I got the real stuff. It's like,
Yeah. Well, you, sir, are one of a kind, and
Absolutely.
I can guarantee you, and none of them what you are. So whatever
Thank
you
you.
whatever
Thank
you
you.
do, I'm with it. I'll be looking out for it, and I'm
okay.
sure the folks will too, because you're a refreshing spirit, and that is eternal.
I'm just gonna go on the books and say, thus far, this has been my favorite that we've done. Absolutely.
mind you, it's been the only interview they've done, but that's
No,
okay.
That's not true. Dude, go back over there. Oh man. Damn it, I wish the camera would have been on. That's funny.
Thank you so much. Was really good.
Was
Bye.
really good.